Hi everyone. All right. I'm going to get myself set up here. I thought I turned off my sound. Let's try again. Okay. Hi Clay. How are you? All right. So we are going to, today is mostly just going to be a Q&A, and I'm kind of toying with the idea if there's Q&As and there's like updates, I'm thinking kind of maybe doing a regular Friday live. I kind of like the idea of doing like a happy hour or something. It's a little early on the West Coast for a happy hour, but it's been one of those days. I wouldn't mind a little beverage at this point, but let's see. Oh, that's a good question, Clay. I will answer that just while we're kind of waiting for some people to get on, and then maybe talk a little bit more about PPP. So last year, was it last year? Yeah. When I originally started my company, it was called Brighten Up Financial. So sometimes you'll still see some legacy stuff on some of my older things. But I decided to rebrand the company once I really found my niche of the CFO services. So I was kind of going through the search, trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to call my business. I didn't really want to name it after myself. Although now I'm called Clara a lot, but that's fine. I was trying to find something because when I really started the business, I really wanted to think about the work that I was doing was helping people get clear about their financials. And then, really, when I first started, I really just wanted to bring more, I think, just more transparency, more openness, more hope around numbers for small business owners, because it seemed to me that a lot of people, if they didn't know what they were looking at, they would either, I don't know, sometimes just get down on themselves or just avoid finances altogether. But I really feel like financials bring clarity, and they bring kind of answers in a different way. So that's really what I wanted the business to project. So Clara comes from, it's not a name, it's not anybody's name. Yes, so Clara is kind of coming from a derivative of the Latin word claris, which means clear and bright, and it's just the feminine version of that. So that's really where Clara comes from. And then I really just also wanted to make sure that we were clear that we do CFO services, so we do financial strategy for small businesses. And then the group piece comes from, like, as I get more CFOs on my team, we can be more collaborative and help more small business owners, and also have like different specialties and whatnot. So I did just hire another CFO to join the team. So that's we can serve more small businesses the more people we have on the team. So thanks for asking, Clay. That's where it comes from. I did think about doing a video on that, but I've got lots in the pipeline. So okay. Let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions, and then I do have a few things that I want to mention to you guys. Sam said, I got a letter from my bank today. It outlines that payments are not due until the end of the deferral period, and they are now accepting applications. Okay, great. Sam, yes, that makes sense. You won't have any payments due, if you even have any payments due on your PPP loan, until after. So remember, you apply to your bank for your forgiveness, and then the bank reviews it, and then it goes to the SBA, and then the SBA has up to 90 days to make a forgiveness determination, and then they send the money back to your bank to fund your loan, and any remainder will be what your loan amount will be. So some people are not going to have any loan amount, so all the interest that's been accruing over this time and anything else will just be wiped away. Some people will have a little bit left over, especially those who got an EIDL advance. So if you got an EIDL advance, then that amount will be essentially netted out of your PPP loan. So you might have a little bit of a remainder left over just because you received an EIDL advance. Even if you get 100% forgiveness on your PPP loan, let's say it was $100,000, but you got a $10,000 EIDL advance. That's the grant portion, the advance, the free money. That nets out with your PPP loan. So then you would have a $10,000 loan you still have to repay. But you don't have to start paying that until you get that determination from the SBA. Kat, yes, Brian from Clear Value Tax definitely shouted me out during a video at some point, which was super kind of him. He's awesome. Okay. Phil says, if I apply for forgiveness based on 10 weeks of payroll, does it matter if the number of employees is lower now while filling out this form? Phil, it kind of depends. It depends. I wonder if you don't have to say how much your loan is in the comments, but if you have under $50,000 loan, then it does not matter, because if it's under $50,000, you can use the 3508S form, and you don't have to prove out any kind of employee reductions. Now, if you have more than 50,000, then we would go and look at to see if you were qualified for one of the FTE safe harbors. For example, like if your business was shut down and you weren't able to operate at a certain level, then because like you were shut down by a government ordinance or something like that, then you can reduce employees and not have to bring them back on. There's a couple other safe harbors as well. That's actually one of the things that I'm going to be doing a video on pretty soon. So it kind of depends on that. Technically, if you have a large loan and you do need to do a comparison of the, I'm trying to think, February 15th and then the end of your covered period. Well, no, that's not right. You need to keep your average FTE higher than a comparison point. So that comparison point can either be 2 periods. It can be one of 2 look-back periods. And these are going to be for any loans that are not eligible for the safe harbor on the easy form and then are more than $50,000. Okay, so this is like if you have a larger loan and you have more complex payroll probably. So there's the look back period thing. So I'm not sure, I don't think I have time to go into all of that because that's pretty complex, and I do have a video coming up to explain the look back periods, and the people who will need to do the look back periods are going to be using the 3508 forgiveness form. Okay. Sam says he got an EIDL of 1,000, so I will owe 1,000 on a 5-year loan. I did not attend UT. Are you talking about UT Knoxville? I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee originally, but no, I didn't go there. I went to the University of South Carolina for my undergrad and then did my master's out here for the Master's of Accounting program at the University of Washington. But yes, Sam, you will owe $1,000 after your forgiveness. If you get 100% forgiveness and then you got the EIDL of 1,000, your PPP loan at the end of the day will be $1,000. So if you did not spend your EIDL, you could just pay it off and be done with it, or you can keep it and pay it off over the length of the loan term. And your loan term starts not when you get forgiveness, but when you originally got the money. So if you got it after June 5th and you have a 5-year loan term, then it started at that point that you got the money, your 5 years. Okay, Matthew is asking if we've heard about if applying for PPP forgiveness now will make it harder to get a second round if it is passed. I have no clue, Matthew, I'm sorry. All of that I feel is really speculative because I've heard the other way. I've heard that if you wanted a second round of PPP, you would have had to already apply for forgiveness for your first round. But honestly, Who knows? Who knows? Sam, no, I mean, second round of PPP, I think until we have guidance and until we have like a more, um, I mean, really until we have almost a final, like, I don't think we can, look at the stimulus package and say that it's anything close to what's actually going to be in a final one if one is passed. And if we're looking at a second round of PPP, um, it could still really change because these things are still being negotiated. So I think we're a little bit far out from that right now, you know, especially with the election next week. Everybody remember to vote, okay? Kat says, can you use the PPP loan for a crazy business idea like a YouTube account? No, technically you cannot use your PPP loan for just anything. PPP is supposed to be used mostly for payroll. At least 60% of the loan needs to be used for payroll and payroll costs. So that would be other employee costs associated. You can use it for mortgage interest, you can use it for rent, and you can use it for utilities. It's not supposed to be used for anything else besides that. You're supposed to certify to the use of the funds on the forgiveness application. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. However, what you can do is if you do have some of those expenses, you could use the PPP loan to pay for those expenses, your payroll and whatnot. And then any other cash you have coming in the door from general operations you could use for your crazy business idea. Do you know when Cabbage is accepting PPP forgiveness applications? I've heard Cabbage has not announced, but if anybody else has a Cabbage loan, could you comment if you've heard anything? Okay, I'm a Schedule C. Sharon says I'm Schedule C, self-employed, under 50K loan, bank still not accepting forgiveness applications. If I apply in 2020, but forgiveness does not come until 2021, how does that affect my 2020 tax return? Great question. I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out too. When I find an answer, I will let you know. But this is pretty common right now for banks, for loans under 50,000, for the banks to say hold off a second, because the S form just came out and now all of the banks are having to go and change their portals to accept those loans and process them slightly differently into the 3508 S form. And so there's just been a number of emails I've heard that going out and saying, hey, if you have a loan under 50,000, hold off. Gregory says, can you use 18 weeks to get forgiveness instead of 24? We have enough payroll in that number of weeks. Absolutely. You can go ahead and apply for forgiveness once your money has been spent. So even if you are before your 24-week period, you can actually go ahead and begin the application process. I mean, and a lot of people spent all the money in 9 weeks, you know, because they were really close there, because they were all pushing to really try to spend the money in the first 8 weeks, because that was the original rules, especially if you got your PPP money the first round or even that that second round. So yes, you can use whatever period, you know, uses up your funds, as long as it's under 24 weeks. Okay. A client of mine applied for the PPP using their 2018 K1 because they didn't have their taxes done. What will they need to provide the bank to get forgiveness? They will need to provide their 2019 tax return. So hopefully they did just as well or better in 2019. The bank shouldn't have allowed them to use their 2018. They should have had them do a draft 2019 return based on their 2019 financials, but the banks made a lot of mistakes as things were coming in, because we were all just trying to figure out the guidance, right? Not everybody got the memo. My client is a restaurant and received 4 loans for 4 separate entities with state guidelines for restaurants. They had limited capacity, so I'm going to use the easy form for them. Are most doing that? Yeah, I mean, that's exactly, I think restaurants are going to be the ones that are going to be the most, or this will be, I mean, I honestly think the easy form kind of came out for restaurants, honestly. Restaurants and other like hard hit industries like that, where they just could not operate at the same level. Absolutely, that's the prime example. One thing that you're gonna have to think about with restaurants though is making sure that the wages did not change. So like the hourly rates, that those hourly rates did not change for those individual employees lower than they did not decrease more than 25%. Now tips can change. So if you're factoring in tips for compensation and those like went from $100 on average to 0 on average, that's okay. But they're talking about the base pay, the base hourly wage, that cannot be. I mean, it can be lower, but then you can't use the easy form. That's what they're saying. But my guess is that that's probably not an issue. They probably just didn't have the hours. If I was, okay, Rihanna says, if I receive the PPP before they extend the time of usage, is my PPP automatically extended to the later time? Yes. All loans after the Flexibility Act were passed were defaulted to allow a 24-week covered period. You can choose, anybody, whether you got the loan before or after, can choose, no, that's not true. Sorry, back that up. If you got your loan before June 5th, you can select an 8-week covered period. But if you got it after June 5th, you can choose, wait, what did I just say? If you got a loan before June 5th, you can choose an 8-week or a 24-week covered period. If you got your loan after June 5th, it's a 24-week covered period. Okay. Edward said, what is the penalty if one forgot to include the EIDL advance amount in their PPP loan forgiveness amount? Edward, I think they're going to look it up anyway. It's going to be by your EIN. I don't know if there's going to be a penalty for it. I doubt there will be a penalty. They're just going to look it up and they'll probably fill it in there for you. It's obviously just going to be a lot easier if it's sitting there. And they can just verify it pretty quickly. Okay, my company used the whole PPP for payroll purposes, except we are having trouble hiring people at the moment that will have an effect on forgiveness application. We had gotten a little over 50K. What period do I need to put on the application? The amount of time it took to use the loan, or the whole 24-week period? But go ahead, when you fill out your application, Ultra Ready, you will select your 24-week period, and then just put your whole covered period on there, the full 24 weeks. Now, it kind of depends on why if you can document that you've been trying to hire employees that are qualified for whatever it is. I'm not sure what industry it is, but if you have not been able to hire qualified people, and you have documented that, like you've put out a job description, you've interviewed people and none of them have had the right qualifications, and you have not been able to hire the right people back, and you've had good faith hiring practices that you're trying to get them back on, then that is a safe harbor exemption for that FTE. So it's okay. You don't have to include those people. Like, basically, you don't have to restore that head count, is what they're saying. Hopefully that's helpful. Thinking of applying for forgiveness next year since guidance keeps evolving. Also, there's still the possibility to decide for auto forgiveness under a certain amount. Why rush the forgiveness? Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, a lot of people are just saying, just wait. This is my position, is if you know that your loan is going to be 100% forgiven, like you have all the backup support, you have everything, and especially for those loans that are over 150,000, really over 50,000, I am just saying, well, it doesn't hurt to just go ahead and apply. However, I know some people are saying, well, wait, because of tax implications and we don't know exactly like how the taxes are going to hit, blah, blah, blah. I mean, a lot of CPAs are just saying, wait. However, I have some clients who are in, maybe purchase arrangements right now where they need to get it off their balance sheet. They have this debt sitting on their balance sheet from PPP loan, and they don't want it showing on their balance sheet, so they're trying to get it forgiven as soon as possible. We also have some other clients that are just trying to clean up their balance sheet, and they just want to get it past them. And really, just from an administrative purpose, they have the time to do it right now, so they're just going ahead and getting it done. And I'm really only recommending that for people that we know we can achieve 100% forgiveness. Because if you've got a tiny loan and you can't get 100% forgiven, then I recommend waiting until we have potentially a blanket forgiveness. But guys, that is not guaranteed. There's no guarantee that we're going to get blanket forgiveness, and there's no guarantee that it's going to get any easier. So if your bank is accepting applications and you think you can get 100% forgiveness based on what you've spent, why not? And you have the time to do it. That's the other thing too. If you have the time and the administrative bandwidth to get it done, you could get it done. Okay. My PPP loan was way under 50. My bank already sent me the easy form to fill out. I already submitted it along with some payroll statements. Now I guess we'll just wait and see. Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, wait and see. The bank should notify you pretty quickly if they review your paperwork and there's some issues. So if you haven't heard from them in a little while, that's probably a good sign. J Bub says, I'm a single member LLC. Do you suppose I can use the transfer pages I printed from my business account to my personal account as a record of owner's compensation proof to the SBA? You're going to need your Schedule C as the main proof of your compensation. Okay, your Schedule C from 2019. All right. I think I'm kind of caught up. I will leave it open for a couple more minutes. I did want to bring up a couple things that I've heard some banks ask about. So one of my clients was applying and the bank rejected one of their rent payments and said it was outside the covered period because they paid a check and they had sent it before the covered period, but the recipient of the check did not cash it until multiple days after the covered period. So the bank was kind of rejecting that, saying that it had not been paid in the covered period. So that might be something to think about. Just make sure if you are still spending the money, make sure that you are considering, if you are sending a paper check, you could potentially, it could be floating out there for a long time before it actually gets cashed or deposited into a bank account. So think about that. If you're really cutting it close, that could be an issue. We're pushing back because we are saying that the paid date is the date that we sent the check. But we also have some other strategies if they're not going to accept that. Another thing that somebody has been watching my channel who is a banker kind of processing some of these loans, and they mentioned that some people are not providing their rent or lease agreements along with any rent payments. And you need to do that, or you need to show some sort of proof that you were in a lease or in a rental arrangement before February 15th, 2020. Remember that the PPP loan was not meant to start helping you pay new expenses. They wanted to help you maintain status quo. So any expenses that you had in February of 2020, they're basically saying, hey, it's you didn't know that this money was coming. And so you do need to prove that you did have these obligations. So if you had any utilities or rent or any mortgage that you were paying, you need to prove that you had that obligation back in February in order to be able to get those payments covered in in the current covered period. My dog is having a heyday in the background. Okay. Yeah, Edward, the rental agreement. If you have a rent statement, sometimes the banks are going to take that. So if you gave a rent statement, that might work. Sole proprietor, my PPP was also way under 50. I can show proof that all the money was used for payroll compensation. Do I still need to list all the other qualifying expenses in the forgiveness forms? You do not. So you will use the 3508S form, and the only number that you have to include is the total amount that you're going to ask for forgiveness. Now, your responsibility is to keep a calculation of how you came up with that number on the back end. You keep it in your file. I would recommend, like, if you don't have anything, I have a Schedule C. I did a webinar that went through everything you need to know as a Schedule C business sole proprietor, and I have an Excel spreadsheet in there that has everything listed out. And so if you don't have anything else to help you, I would check that out. It is on my website. That might be helpful to you. And then, yes, you're still going to need to document all of your expenses that you're asking for forgiveness. So you're still going to have to upload any payroll reports and any lease agreements or anything like that you're asking for forgiveness for, and those amounts, you're still going to need to provide some documentation. Thank you, Jonathan. Yep, 3508S. Yep. Hi, I wonder if any excess paid to the owner employee of S Corp will be forgivable as long as the forgiveness amount doesn't exceed 2.5 months worth of 2019 compensation. Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't exceed 2.5 months of 2019 compensation, then it should be eligible. You would have had to show payroll reports from 2020 up to that amount. So if your 2019 total compensation, well, I guess it can only go max, cash compensation can only go up to 100,000. But sorry, I'm not going to do that number in my head. But yes, essentially, yes, it can go up to 2.5 months of the 2019 compensation, as long as you are using the 24-week covered period. If you're using the 8-week covered period, you only get 8 weeks of compensation. I'm using 100% PPP loan for, okay, yep. Hello, just want to clarify, do we have until 12/31/2020 to restore FTEs back to 1 FTE, even if it's after the covered period? It should be the earlier of the end of your covered period or December 31st, the earlier of the two. Unless your covered period's after December 31st. Hector. But I would really strongly recommend you trying to figure out if you qualify for any of the safe harbors of the FTE reduction stuff. So if your business was shut down, you could not operate because of a government ordinance. Maybe you were not considered a essential business and you had to have some days shut down, that would qualify. Or if you had to just reduce the number of staff because for social distancing purposes or something like that, that is a safe harbor. You do not have to even worry about doing the FTE reduction calculation. Thanks. Ultra ready. Okay, I have a $1,000 EIDL grant which will have to be paid back. Is this amount also subject to interest? No. What would happen is, let's say your PPP loan was $10,000 and you got your, you would be accruing interest on that $10,000. And then once the SBA, forgave it 100%, they would take out the 1,000. They would basically take back the EIDL advance. And so you'd be left with just a $1,000 EIDL advance number. I think that you would just have a principal at that point in time of $1,000 that would then accrue. But I don't think, it's not like you were given an $11,000 PPP loan and then you're getting $10,000 taken off. You're kind of like getting, I don't want to say a new loan, but I think it would reset in that situation, I believe, at disbursement date. But that is a little bit speculatory. That's actually a really good question. Remember, the PPP loans are 1% too. Okay, I opened up my business on September 19th, 19. I used payroll costs from Q1 2020 to get and calculate the payroll costs and apply for a PPP. I'm a single employee. Ooh, I'm not sure I know how to answer that question. Jorge, if you used Q1 to get the payroll cost, I think you can annualize your 2019 Schedule C. But you also are saying you're an S Corp. So I hope, my hope is that you paid yourself with a W-2 in 2019 and you might be able to annualize that compensation. I am actually not sure about that one. That's a good question. All right, you guys, I'm gonna have to hop off. We did about 30 minutes of Q&A here, which is great. I wanna make sure, yeah, I think that is all. I think we covered everything. So a couple good questions here that I'll be kind of turning, and if I can answer it in another live, I absolutely will. Okay. I'm going to answer this last one and then I'll hop off. Okay. So Ricky says, I'm self-employed, and when I did my application for the PPP, I had not filed 2019 taxes. So my loan amount was determined via my 1099. Ricky, you might have gotten too much money in that case, because you should have actually gotten your PPP loan based on the net profit from your Schedule C. So that's line 31. But your 1099 is your revenue coming in. So you didn't take out any business expenses in order to calculate how much you got on your PPP. So you're going to need to look at your Schedule C, line 31, to be able to determine your max compensation. I have a video on max compensation that you should go and look up and see exactly what that would be, and then compare it to your PPP loan. In that case, if you got too much money, it might be good to kind of sit around and wait for if blanket forgiveness happens. So that's just a thought. Okay, all right, guys, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. If you are here, could you give the video a thumbs up, please? Thank you. I always appreciate you guys being here and showing up and being here for my lives. It's really fun, actually, to engage with everybody. So thank you, all the respectful comments. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for taking part of your afternoon to be here with me. All right. Well, thanks so much, guys. Bye.